U.S. officials say Iran was behind the kamikaze drone strikes against U.S. forces in Syria last week. Here are the details. The Associated Press reports that U.S. officials said on Monday, October 25th, that they believe Iran was behind the drone attack on the al-Tanf military outpost in Syria, where U.S. troops are based. The drone attack happened on Wednesday, October 20th, and U.S. officials say the drones were Iranian and Iran appears to have facilitated their use. Officials said they believe the attacks involved as many as 5 kamikaze drones laden with explosive charges, and that they hit both the U.S. side of al-Tanf garrison and the side where Syrian opposition forces stay. The proliferation of these crude kamikaze drones is part of Iran's regional strategy. The country supports proxies, such as the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon, with weapons platforms, says David Schenker, a senior fellow at the Washington Institute of Near East Policy. Often, drones are shipped in parts from Iran and assembled in Gaza, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. There were no reported injuries or deaths as a result of the attack. U.S. and coalition troops are based at al-Tanf to train Syrian forces on patrols to counter Islamic State militants. The base is located on a road that serves as a vital link for Iranian-backed forces from Tehran all the way to southern Lebanon and Israel. After years of a shadow war between Iran and Israel, in which both sides used clandestine strikes against each other's commercial and military ships, a British guard and a Romanian sailor have now been killed in a suicide drone strike on an oil tanker. Here are the details. The Associated Press reports that the UK and US joined Israel in saying Iran was behind an attack on an Israeli-operated oil tanker that killed 2 people, and have vowed to respond, calling it a violation of international law. U.S. Navy explosive experts believe a drone strike hit the tanker off the coast of Oman, killing a British security guard and a Romanian shipworker. The strike hit the bridge of the tanker Mercer Street on the night of Thursday, July 29th. It marks the first known fatal attack after years of assaults on commercial shipping in the region linked to tensions with Iran. While no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, Israeli officials alleged Tehran launched the drone strike against a ship that was being operated by an Israeli company. Iran denied the allegations and said Israel killed the shipworkers in a false flag attack designed to show Iran in a bad light. The attack comes after years of tit-for-tat attacks in which Israel and Iran use clandestine methods to attack each other's commercial and military ships, using limpet mines, drones, and other methods to cause damage. A U.S. official speaking on condition of anonymity said the attack appeared to have involved several drones, including a so-called suicide drone, which was presumably responsible for pressing home the attack itself. The Pentagon says it carried out airstrikes against Iran-backed militia groups in the border region between Iraq and Syria on Sunday. The strikes come as Iran has been holding talks with world powers, including the U.S., about reviving a 2015 nuclear deal, which lifted sanctions against Iran in exchange for stopping some nuclear work. Reuters reports that the U.S. has carried out airstrikes against the Iran-backed militia groups in the Iraq-Syria border region on Sunday, June 27th. The Pentagon said the strikes hit operational and weapons storage facilities in response to drone attacks on U.S. forces. About 2,500 U.S. troops are based in the country as part of an intentional coalition fighting the Islamic State jihadist group. U.S. forces based in Iraq have been targeted several times in recent months by drone attacks. Iran has denied any involvement. According to the Pentagon, the defensive precision airstrikes hit 2 targets in Syria and 1 in Iraq. It said several Iran-backed militia groups, including Kataib Hezbollah and Kataib Saeed al-Shuhada, used these facilities. A monitoring group reported that 5 militia fighters were killed and several more fighters were wounded in Syria, in what it called an attack by U.S. warplanes. Iran's influence over Iraq's internal affairs has grown steadily since the U.S.-led invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein in 2003. This is the second round of airstrikes that President Biden has authorized against Iran-backed militias since taking office in January. 2 ships of the Iranian Navy have rounded the southern tip of Africa, becoming the first Iranian Navy ships to ever enter the Atlantic Ocean. This comes just days after Iran's largest Navy ship caught fire and sank. It appears that the 2 Iranian ships are heading for Venezuela, which would have significant geopolitical ramifications. Here are the details. The Drive reports that 2 ships of the Iranian Navy have reportedly rounded South Africa's Cape of Good Hope and appear to be heading into the Atlantic Ocean. The 2 ships are the frigate Sahand and the Makran, a converted tanker that looks like it's designed to be a mobile base. This latest news comes 2 days after the Karg, one of Iran's largest and most important naval ships, sank after suffering a major fire, the causes of which remain unclear. This would be the first time Iranian naval vessels have operated in the Atlantic, and previous reports have indicated that their final destination is in Venezuela, where they might offload a shipment of weapons. While it is still unclear if the ships are carrying any weapons, satellite imagery suggests the Makran is carrying a number of small, fast-attack boats that Iran has used to harass U.S. naval ships in the Persian Gulf. If Iranian Navy vessels gain the ability to operate in the Atlantic, analysts say it would be a significant step forward for Iran, which has tried and failed to do so in the past. The Pentagon says the delivery of Iranian weapons to Venezuela would be a provocative act and a threat to America's partners in the Western Hemisphere. The Pentagon said, "We would reserve the right to take appropriate measures in concert with our partners to deter the delivery or transit of such weapons." The recent deaths of 2 shipworkers in a mysterious drone strike on an oil tanker highlighted a shadow war between Iran and Israel that could escalate into a real war. We compared the militaries of the 2 sides and found that while Iran has many number advantages, Israel has some crucial quality advantages. Here are the details. We looked at the military strength of Iran and Israel and found that Iran's much larger population of 84 million versus the roughly 9 million people in Israel allows Iran to field an active duty force of 525,000 troops, compared to Israel's 170,000. Iran has more tanks, but these are mostly T-72s and copies of the T-54 and T-55, which are widely considered inferior to Israel's Merkava Mark IV. Israel's air force is larger and much more modern than Iran's, with 66 F-15s, 175 F-16s, and at least 27 F-35 stealth fighters, with plans to own 75 F-35s in total. Iran's air force consists of 63 old F-4s and 26 old F-14s, as well as 19 MiG-29s and 23 Su-24s from Russia and 17 F-7s from China. Israel also possesses 48 attack helicopters compared to Iran's 12. Iran's navy is larger and is modernizing, but Israel's navy has advanced missiles and vessels, and it can likely also launch nuclear-armed cruise missiles from its 5 Dolphin-class submarines, which are believed to operate near the Persian Gulf. Thanks to U.S.-led sanctions, Iran likely has no nuclear weapons on its 29 submarines. Iran pursued nuclear capabilities in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and while Tehran says it doesn't seek nuclear weapons now, its recent enrichment activity has raised questions about its true aims.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.